Today we are drawing Tsuchigumo, the Japanese spider yokai. Now I'm Daggett, this is Daggett Designs, welcome back to a brand new drawing video, and I don't have much else to say, so let's get straight into today's video by going to the overhead. Alright, welcome back to the table. So with Halloween coming up, I thought it would be appropriate to draw something a little bit spooky. So today we're drawing a Tsuchigumo, which is a Japanese spider yokai. Now we've got a pad of sketch paper here, a pencil, just for sketching our design, an eraser and a sharpener to keep a fine point on our pencil. So I'm going to start this one off by drawing in the head and the sort of main abdomen section of our spider. So I'm going to drop in an oval like this for the head. You want the head to be quite big, and another oval which is going to be on an opposing angle, so we're actually going to have almost an acute angle on this side with it coming up in this direction like this. And of course you want the body to be bigger than the head, like this. And you can of course go ahead and refine these shapes later on. So we're going to start by dropping in a center line down the body like this, and then that would bend at this point and come around the front of the head. And there's going to be a center line that runs across the head as well in this way, and that's where we're going to place our first set of eyes. So just dropping in two large sort of circular shapes for our first set of eyes. And by first, this is going to have multiple eyes. On either side of our center line, I'm dropping in an oval shape towards the bottom here, like an elongated sort of oval shape, like that. On either side of these eyes, I'm going to drop in some smaller circles, giving us more eyes, and I might do one more towards the top of the head. This one's going to be a little bit more of an oval sort of shape. From here, mapping in the legs, I'm going to come up from the section between the head and the body, and we're going to come straight up like this. And we're just using these little rectangle shapes for now, these little curved rectangles. That's going to come maybe forward like this, and then down and forward in front of our head. And you're dropping them in, they taper off as they get smaller at the front there. I'll come back with the next one, another little rectangle sort of shape. Maybe that one can come out this way and out towards the front like that. And then we're going to have two more legs at the back here. Now you're going to repeat this process for drawing in the legs or construction lines for the legs on the other side. Once you've added in the construction lines for all of your legs, it's time to start adding in some details. So I'm going to start off by making the eyes a little more solid, just building up a more solid line around them. From here I'm going to add these like little eyebrow sections to them, so just coming around the front of this eye here, and then the eye on the outside as well, to add in these sort of eyebrow sections. And you can add in whatever kind of pupil you like. I like to do these long sort of style pupils like this. For these smaller eyes at the bottom, I'm going to add in similar little eyebrow shapes like this. Maybe this one coming from the outside like that, and again adding in some small pupils. I always think spiders are creepier when they're drawn with multiple eyes. Now for our fangs at the front here, you're going to draw these similar to how you would draw claws on like a tiger design. You're going to have these long fang-like parts coming out like this, connecting up. At the base of these or just underneath them, you can curve a line up like that. And on the other side, I'm going to add in these little overlapping lines to create almost like a fluffy or furry appearance, because the spiders have those little hairs on their face. Now on either side of our fang, I'm going to drop in these little additional limbs or mandibles at the front there, just used for feeling things out. And these are little details that you can just go ahead and add on either side of the face. Now I'm just going to finish it by adding in these little flicking lines, which we use for drawing, you know, small hairs and that sort of thing. And you can do the same thing over on the other side, adding in these small flicking lines to add in these small sort of hairy textures on our yokai here. Now coming up to the top of the head, adding in the top of this oval shape for our eye up here, the last eye on the head here. Adding in a pupil, and I might bring this eyebrow out and across a little bit more. Help it sort of take up a little bit more space there. And then you're going to add a little line to the top of your eye like this. And then you can connect up the rest of the head. Just using some little sort of wavy lines. Now to structure out your body, I'm pretty much just going to use a combination of smooth sort of wavy lines to give it a little bit more of a rough appearance. Towards the back here, I'm going to come out to a bit of a point like that, and then come down the other side in the same sort of manner. On the other side, your legs are going to be obscuring the body, so don't stress about that too much. Okay, from here we're detailing the legs. I'm just going to give you an example on one of them, and you can repeat it 8 times for all of your legs. So for each section where it joins, you're going to do solid lines at the top like this. Bring that around. And then on the underside of our limbs here, I'm going to use those little flicking lines to create a almost furry-like texture. Where the limbs actually join up, I like to add in this additional, almost like a little disc shape. That's like the connective tissue. Solid along the top again. And then these little flick hairy lines that come underneath once again. And then for the last one, you add in your little connective disc there. And then I always like to make this last one look a little bit rough and a little bit spiky, like that. And you can repeat that for all of your limbs. Alright, now in terms of doing a pattern on this guy's back, there's lots of different things you can do. I've seen it done many different ways. In this example, what I'd like to do is a skull. Like I said, this is almost like a little Halloween special for this design. Not only that, but I like to make them look nice and spooky, so I'll add in a cross section to give us a bit of a center line like this. And I'm going to place some eyes on there. So just coming up like this and adding in a bit of an oval, rectangular sort of shape like this, like a box. And same thing on the other side of our center line. I'll get a bit closer to our center line for this one. Trying to keep them roughly the same size, like that. And coming down from there, I'll put in our nose. I mean, this is sort of like a flat skull. So I'm just adding in like a little upside down triangle shape for our nose. And then I'll come down from either side like this. And I'm not really adding in teeth. I'm just going to add in these little teeth-like shapes with gaps in between them, like this. And now I'm going to come back up this side, creating my cheek sort of structure on this side, and just looping back into the eye there, for the bottom of the eye. And then on the other side, I might come out from the eye, come up, and maybe just loop back into the rest of the body there. And you can play around with your structure a little bit here to sort of tie it into your skull better, and that gives you your pattern. And then of course you can add whatever little details and sort of cracks and whatever you'd like to make the skull look more realistic, if that's your style. Alright, last thing we're going to do is add in a cobweb. So starting from behind our spider, I'm going to draw lines that come out to each of our limbs just to start with, like this. And you want to sort of have them as straight as possible, as though they're coming from the same point behind the spider, almost like a central sort of point, like this. So we'll drop in all of these little straight lines coming from each of our limbs, and then you can add in some additional lines coming out from different areas. And now from there, what I'm going to do is link up each of those lines with a little curved line or multiple small curved lines. This is the exact same way you would do it if you were drawing like a cartoon spider web, but we're going to keep this nice and thin, keep our lines nice and thin for this one. That's going to give it a little bit more of a realistic sort of appearance. Now that the sketch is done, I'm going to transfer it over to some watercolor paper and we can start painting this one. Alright, I've transferred our design to the watercolor paper here, and I've added a few dots for detail. I used a grey Copic multi-liner to do our web. You could substitute for a thinner lining marker, or you could go ahead and use a pencil for that. Now I've got our palette set up here with carbon black. I've got a grey wash. This is like a dark grey wash. Yellow, orange, azo, pyrrole red, and phthalo green. So keeping the color palette nice and simple. I've got 2 brushes, Taklon synthetic brushes, number 5 and number 6, and a glass of water that's going to help us with washing out the brushes and blending some of the inks here. So as always with this one, I'm starting off with the black shading, and I always start with black shading. I'm going to come in and start with the limbs, applying some black at the back sort of corner, maybe the base of the limbs, like that. And then I'll take my blending brush with a bit of water and just blend that out to a nice grey, moving all the way up the limb there. Now I'm going to use that exact same technique for each section of the limb, just starting in that back sort of corner with a bit of black there, using my blending brush to blend that out to a nice grey, and blending it forward across the limb and down onto the feathered sort of section, or the furry part of the limb. For that last little section of the limb, we'll add a bit of black at the base of it there. And I'll do the same thing, but this time I don't want to go all the way down the limb. I'm just going to blend that out to a white sort of at the base there. And I'm going to do that for all of our limbs. Now once you've painted all your limbs in that manner, you're going to go ahead and take a little bit more of your black, and we're actually going to go in and paint in the details of our skull here. So just starting off with our eyes, painting them in solid black. Now you can of course get really fancy with all sorts of different details here if you wanted the skull to look more realistic. In this case, I kind of want the skull to look a little bit more flat. I want it to look like a pattern that's actually sort of painted onto this guy's back. So just going in with solid black for the eyes, but feel free to add in those extra details if you'd like. Once you've painted in those areas of the skull, I'm going to go around the entire sort of perimeter of the skull with our black, and then just use my watercolor brush or my blending brush to sort of blend that out to a grey. This is going to strengthen that stippling effect that we have all around the skull, and it's going to look really cool. Now I'm coming in from the back of the skull here with a pretty heavy black. There's sort of no limbs in this area that are going to get destroyed by shading, so dropping in heavy black right down to where the limbs are, and then I'll work on just blending that forward and around the skull here. If you need to, you can leave a little bit of a gap between the skull, the body and the limbs there for separation purposes, and that's fine as well. Now that that's separated out the skull, I'm going to go ahead and wash out my brush, and we're going to go into our grey wash now for painting in the face. Now pretty much when I'm doing this, I'm not going to really be blending too much. I'm going to sort of be working from the back areas of the face, leaving skin gaps where I want them to be to help separate things, and otherwise just bringing grey through the face. His actual like color, skin tone is grey in this case, so just bringing that around. When I get down to these sort of fluffy areas, I might just blend that grey off a little bit. Now in areas where you want it to be darker, you can go ahead and re-dip. This will darken up your grey wash again and help to bring that through. Now I'm going ahead here and applying grey wash over the top of the shading we did on the body in areas where I'd like it to sort of be heavier, and just making sure to leave some nice gaps along where the limbs sit over the top of the body, just to help separate things a little bit. Those gaps can be really small as well. Now once you've done the main body tone of your Tsuchigumi here, I'm going to wash my brush out, and we're going to go into our pyrrole red a little bit here, and there's a few details we're doing with that. So the first one is going to be in the ends of our limbs here. You're basically going to apply a bit of the red towards the very end of the limb, the tip of the limb here, just like that, and then you can very gently blend that back just to help soften it into the limb a little bit, And this is going to give these really nice little red tips to your limbs, which looks really cool. Now there's also going to be a little bit of red at the bottom of our fangs here. So just coming underneath your fangs with a bit of the red. And then you're going to blend it up to a pink. It's going to give it a fleshy look for the underside of your fangs there. And you're also going to use that same red for those two little feelers that you've got on either side of your fangs. Just in the very tips of them with a bit of red. And then you can blend that back. Now the very last little bit of red that we're doing is in the back of the skull here. This is going to give it the appearance of like a redback spider, but it's also going to sort of just add another bit of color and detail to this area where the skull is. So just adding a bit of red, and then I'll blend it out into a circular fashion like that, but you can sort of do it however you'd like. If you wanted to, you could do a solid red mark on the back of the skull. Okay, from here, washing my brush out again. And I'm going to go into my yellow-orange azo for a couple of details here. I'm going to start off with the connective parts in between the limbs. These are very, very small details, but I'm going to go in and add a bit of color to them nonetheless, because this is mostly a black and gray design here. Now I've seen the people do Tsuchigumo tattoos in, brown colors before. I've seen them done blue, which looks really nice as well. You could pretty much do it whatever color you'd like, as long as it looks like a spider, I guess, but I sort of like to do them a gray or a black color, which looks closer to a real spider, I guess. If you'd like to, you can also use a little bit of your yellow-orange azo to paint in some of those little furry bits, just by applying a little bit of it and then blending it out into the ends where you've done the texturing. Now you're going to get your phthalo green loaded up, and I'm going to come in from the back portion of our eye here with our phthalo green, and then I'm going to use my blending brush to bring that green forward into a white as we get to the very sort of center portion of the eye, and I'll do that on both sort of sides. And this is going to give it a bit of a glow effect towards the center of the eye, and just have a nice fade from the green to the center there. And you're basically going to do that for each of your eyes, starting with green from the outside, blending it to white towards the center or towards the pupil, and then turning your page, going with green from the other side, and blending around your pupil again, and that's going to give your eyes that really cool sort of glowy effect. Alright, now that's pretty much it for this one, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you give this one a go. This is a Japanese Tsuchigumo Yokai. Alright, happy Halloween, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. If you like the content that I make, and you'd like to support the channel, make sure you smash that like button, and hey, while you're at it, check out one of these other great videos.